This. Okay. So actually, this webinar was. I see you're on here, Jim. That's who was talking back. You asked the question, I think, about hitting a fade. Is that correct?
Yes, I've been having a little problem with that.
Yeah, so we're going to cover that tonight, that topic only, and then what we'll do is come back and talk. Normally we go, talk about the flow contained and delivery and the key components of the system and so forth, and some things in between all those areas. But tonight we're going to change it up a little bit and kind of go into just how to hit a fade, and then, of course, then if we do that, then the following webinar we're going to have to talk about how to hit a draw, and then we can start to kind of work into training for the winter and so forth. That's kind of where the webinars be headed. But most people that are on here, they already hit a fade, but it's still important to understand the type of fade we're talking about. It's not a fade that they hit. They hit a slice, and they had a lot of spin, whereas a low spin fade is probably one of the most popular shots on the tour. But again, the key word there is not the fade. It's a low spin fade versus a high spin slice. If it's high spin, it's going to be a slice. Doesn't have to be a slice, but in general, you're going to see if it's high spin, it's just either going to get vertical early and cut a little bit, or it's going to be where you hit a driver and pull it 30 yards to the left and it ends up 60 yards to the right. So that would be high spin, but either way. So, the king of that, there was the first person that I would say that probably that controlled the fade the best in the world was Ben Hogan. I'm not going to pull this one up tonight, but I'm going to pull up a player that didn't practice a lot, that just found something in, was a player that just found it early in his career, didn't have to practice much because his ball striking was so good, he could just hit this fade every single time, and that's Bruce Litsky. It was really odd just the way he found it, and we'll probably all of us go our whole life and not really find the consistency he had, but that's okay too. You can still get a lot better, but it's just some players find it and they found something they liked out of his eyes, feel, and he probably didn't put a lot of thought into it. It just happened, and he was like, well, I can do that. And that's what every player needs to do. And I think as we go through this series of hitting the fade and hitting the draw, you can kind of find out which player you are and embrace it, or try, because you need to try both sides to find which one you really feel like you're best with. Either one, you're going to want low spin. So we're gonna cover that. But let's take a look at Bruce's swing here. Let's see if I can find this. There we go. This isn't super slow or anything, but a lot of the times if you watch if you hear somebody hits a fade, you think that you have to take the club outside. A lot of the best players that hit a fade actually took the club kind of in a little bit. Bruce Litsky was one of those. So he took it in, again, it goes kind of, again, what we talk about with backswing. It's how you recover on the downswing. But if you look at, I'll play this, hopefully this is running. Pretty inside there. I mean, there wouldn't be a lot of instructors tell you that's on plane. So it's inside, pretty simple. Goes up. Now here's where it gets tricky. When you see a player, what I believe when I see a player, it's in transition. Everything I believe is transition based. So what you do in transition, coming out of transition, that first foot is probably going to determine what type of player you are. It's going to also determine a lot about your impact and so forth. When you get up to the top, we're going to get up here and stop it right in here. And even there, he's already made some movement. But let's just say he's established the hand position in this area. Don't worry about the face and all that yet. As he comes out of this, you'll see a movement where the hands are going to go. With a fade player, they're going to go out. Okay, but there's two parts to this. So we're going to talk about the out part first. You'll see it pushed out. The hands pushed off that plane and out. Now, when you hear us talk about, or me, I should say, talk about this first plane, you'd hear me always say about when you come off that first plane, it's too flat. It should be on the seam of the shirt. You can see that's over the seam of the shirt right here. The shaft's a little bit over. It's still behind the hands. And that's one of the first essentials of the three we talk about down in the plane. But it's still behind the hand, and that's going to be really important here in a little bit. But you can see, if we go back, that the hands will come out after transition. So let him go back. He's definitely inside there quite a bit. Establishes transition. He's trying to move, then he moves the club away. So he doesn't move the club, he moves his hands away. from his body. You're going to see his hands start to get further away from his body out here. But he still has discipline to the plane back here. And that's really important. So that's what's going to set up the next part. So we'll try this again. We'll go down, halfway down. Now, if you remember the videos where I talk about, you'll see some of these in the central videos, but the hands typically we would say we want right here in the sternum. And we want the shaft at this point right here, if we took it, this is the second plane. Try to do as best I can through the middle of the spine. And there you go. That's where you're going to see the most players on the tour right there, where their hands are in this yellow area, not out here. So, but if you look at what he's done, and this is, I always say this, it's like he's got his hand out, but his shaft is back. If his shaft was up on top here, we wouldn't even be talking. I can tell you, I wouldn't waste my time talking about him because he wouldn't be anything. Not that he wouldn't be a good person, but he wouldn't be worth talking about as far as a golfer because he'd be a 100 shooter. So if he pulled his hands out where he's got them and his shaft was already vertical, this head was tipped over here, it would be a worthless conversation. It wouldn't help you. But he didn't. Is he different than what we talk about as ideal? Yeah, he is for what we call straight, which would be, again, through more than this seam portions where everything would be laying right in here, and the hands would be in this area. Be right in this area. Okay? So he's outside of that because his hands have moved out towards the golf ball. If you look at the baseline, we'll try to say that I may miss it. I did miss it. I kind of thought I would. It's not super slow here, so just bear with me. Oh, okay. That's a good one. We'll see. That may be where we have to capture that. It's going to be tough. Hang with me. And it's still behind here. This is a good one to look at because not on the. This isn't the baseline, but I'll want to pull it up because if you look here, the hands are way out front away from his body, and if you notice, the shaft has got an angle. There's that angle we're talking about. This guy hits a 20-yard cut with his driver. He cut the ball more than anybody on the tour. I think Tiger Woods, the first time he played with him, said he hits it there. I never imagined he hit the ball that much with a cut, but he didn't hit a lot of spin either. But you can still see the club hasn't tipped over the baseline here. So if you look, if his hands were here and his club was over in this area, tipped over more, we wouldn't really be having much of a conversation. Okay, so he's still holding that respect to what we talked about, that baseline. You'll see as he hits the baseline, it's got to come out a little bit more because I won't get it on this one, I don't think. But I'll try on the next one. We'll look at it and see if I can get that baseline exact. Yep, there it is. So if you look now, the club is not on the club is not behind the hands here. It can't be because he's trying to hit the ball. If you look at the angle that this club is on here, that's the angle that essentially now it's a different plane because they're on two different planes. But you can see that means this ball is going to start here and then work its way back out here through club face control. Okay, because now you can see the club head has finally got outside. We took that. Now his club head is outside. At this point, the club has to start to move. You'll see some players where if it was leaned back a little bit, like an Adam Scott here, in this area, he's going to hit more of a push draw. Roy McIlroy, he's giving his out a little bit more to bait on the baseline because he's trying to hit again. He's trying to hit this little pull cut. Okay. A lot of the key factors you'll see with this as you get onto the baseline is they'll stay really low through the ball. So if you look at these players, this kind of comes where a right shoulder tackle on the right shoulder, but they'll stay really low. Probably stay low if they hit a draw, but they stay really low for a lot longer period of time, it seems like, when they're trying to hit that draw. So that's another thing, is staying steeper with your shoulders through the ball, staying down under the shot instead of letting your shoulder get more, kind of level like this. If you come up and out and level, the club's probably going to flip and you can't control the club face as much. That's the basis on that. So we'll come back and look at this again. I think this is really important to go over. You'll see it. I'm just going to let the club, I'm going to let it go back and through. You'll watch, you'll see a little circle out. Do it again. Goes in, little out right there, that little out part. The hands will move out in towards the golf ball. Through. We'll look at that a few more times. Probably the most notable fader of the golf ball of all time besides maybe Ben Hogan. Ben Hogan had a little more options. The thing with Hogan is, and we'll go over that too, is by what he did with what Hogan did with the shaft. A lot of players this day do it too. He had more options. Like Hogan didn't just hit a fade. Hogan hit left to right, right to left. This guy really pretty much only ever hit the ball left to right. And so what I like about that is, and same with Craig Staley, I'm going to take Pete this swing in a little bit, is they just never, if you had to hit a draw, it's just like, well, they didn't really do it and not hit a 1 yard cut instead of a, 10-yard cut. So watch it go back, and then it goes, hands will move out away from the body. Going back, watch him move out. Start to move out, but he keeps this angle. There's that angle we talk about. The hands are definitely further out here than what we would suggest. We would want the hands more in our style, right in here for the straight ball. That means if he had the hands right here and the shaft is in the same plane, we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. That shaft was on the same exact angle. It's on shaft's on perfect angle, but his hands are further out. So if I'm going to erase it, the shaft angle here is fine. There's no problem with the shaft angle. Okay. The hand position is why he hits a fade, and that's by design. But he also has to have the shaft angle to match up to that. So if I brought his hands and I said, okay, well, I want to put his, where you see his glove hand here, and he had the same shaft angle, he'd hit a draw. But what he found in the style of, he didn't do what we're doing here to find it. He did it for really just art. Just found it, probably hit it one day and figured out like, wow, I don't know what I just did, but I'll probably keep trying that. And, he's a field player. He's not really a scientist, or he doesn't really try to go in and figure it all out. And, Jim McLean was a good friend of his and said that, he never taught technique, never anything. He said he just found it one day, and when he found it, he said he never lost it. And so that's what most people are trying to do, is find something they can nail on day to day. That's why I'm not a big believer in saying you got to hit a draw or a fade. I'm a big believer in finding you better find the one the ball flight that works best for you, whether it is a draw or a fade, and then stay with it and use it. And I think you should be able to hit both shots. I mean, it definitely limited him in some tournaments, but again, this guy, he was such a good ball striker. I mean, it's hard to say it hurt him a whole lot. So, we'll do this one more time, then we'll switch it up. We'll back that out a little bit. You'll see from here, and you'll move the hands over the shoulder and through. And if you look at the bottom, a lot of people say you got to hang on to get a cut. Watch how he releases the club down through here. That's a lot of release right in here. So through. I should say rotation, release if you're technically not the word, but it's definitely a lot of rotation. So that club is moving around a lot. It's turning over. So that would be considered rotation. Release is the club moves below the hands. And there you go. All right, so what we're going to do now, we're going to take a look at a couple other players. This was an interesting, I couldn't find a really good, and this isn't when Craig Stadler was young, but, he won a Masters. And this isn't his best swing, obviously. He's probably shot in the 80s in this tournament. But
one of the questions that
let me turn this thing on. So if you watch him, he goes up and all this stuff. There's the hand movement. And they all have this. The players that have that fade type of ball flight, they'll go up a bunch of different ways, but then their hands will circle out and move away. They get away from their body here. But you can still see the shaft is back here. It's not as much as you're going to see some players. They didn't like Sergio. Sergio would have it laid back under here, but his arms would be a little deeper too. A lot of different ways to do it, and I think that should give more hope to me. You got to find the style. He's not the same style as a Sergio Garcia. If you try to make him swing like Sergio Garcia, he would never, much less win a Masters, and he never played on the tour. So you got to find, that's going to be really important. It has to do with mobility. It has to do with style. It has to do with a lot of things. It has to do with the unknown as well. The unknown is like finding out who you are, not somebody else. But I do think that understanding examples and kind of getting your style to match up with things that you think you can or can't do make a difference. So, so we'll go look at this again here real quick. Things back normal. Hands move out in there, and then you'll still, as he moves the hands out, Here's where Fader's get in trouble. Is he moves the hands, he's moving the hands out, obviously, moving them off of his shoulder here, but he didn't bring the club head with it. He kept the side of the shaft back and resisted away from that. So as it's trying to swing over, as he's moving the hands this way, he still kept the discipline of the shaft going this way, away. He didn't let it come out here. And that's what is very, 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 very important for amateur golfers to know is like, because we're not advocating getting the hands out here this far. We would want the hands in general right where it's formed is right here. But if you took that shaft angle and you took what we talk about in the same plane, that matches up. So it shows you that the shaft angle, all these pros have really essentially the same shaft angle. The angle of the shaft stays the same. Where their hands are starts to change. Now you'll still see different shaft angles. You'll see some like I was saying earlier with Sergio Platter, but you're not going to see anybody come out where the shaft angle is vertical like this, like that. It may get above, actually past the hands. You might see some that are a little steeper than this. You might see like Phil Mickelson kind of gets steep at one point, and then all of a sudden down at the bottom he kind of shallows it out again. Gary Woodland kind of steepens the shaft a little bit, not all the way where it's not. It wouldn't be where it's out over there, and that's not steep anymore. That's lost. So, but this is still steep. Don't get me wrong. This shaft angle right here is steep, steepish, I should say. But if I put his hands right here and have that same angle, I mean, it's pretty much right on with what we teach. So it's maybe just a shade steep. We probably want it to be a little bit more in here, depending for the straight ball. But again, this is somebody that cuts the ball. So when your hands come out, it's very important to keep the shaft back and wait. You have to wait, keep that shaft back as long as you can. I'm going to try to find another player. Carl Peterson does a great job. He was hitting kind of a draw on what he was doing, but I want to show his swing because he really pushes the hands out and really keeps the shaft back and does a phenomenal job of that. But that's another player. This guy was the king of the fade and made a lot of money. He won the Masters, and typically a right-handed golfer that hits a fade doesn't win the Masters. They usually have to have right to left and left to right and all that stuff. It just shows you. And there's that movement, that little circle up there at the top. But if you watch the circle, the hands move out, but the shaft kind of lays down a little bit. It kind of lays. Shafts, you watch, is kind of going down this way a little bit. That's exaggerated. And the hands are kind of going out this way. That's a hell of a combination that puts you right in the middle of that. So, all right. What else we have here? So this is Bub Watson. Now I want to show extreme version of this is more of a like power fade. I don't know, slice is a bad word to say because when I think of slice, I think of high spin. So you can tell he hits a really low spin, just crushing, fade. But it really, a lot of times it's slicing, but it doesn't have any spin. So it's like, I think I said this one. If you look here at the top, it's 363-yard fade. I think I remember this hole when he did this. I was watching this. I've seen him play up close within, being 15, 20 feet away from me. It's amazing to see, what he can do with the golf ball going from basically a fade or a slice type of motion. This is a little bit more extreme, but I wanted to show you. He doesn't really go in. He does the traditional, kind of goes outside a little bit. We'll cut this off. That goes out. But if you watch here, what I tell you, one of the things you can look at right here that where amateurs don't do, we're going to come back into this in the pitfalls in a minute, is when they're trying to hit a fade, this is something they don't do. If you watch this part of his body in here, and you'll see movement, even though he's swinging the club outside, because there's probably a lot of golfers on here that are going to be watching this, that they'll try to cut it by swinging outside, kind of out the end, supposedly. But forget all that. Watch as he's doing all this. Look at the movement that he has when he does this. Look at the rotation. So if you're watching this, you can see there's a ton of rotation in this area. So there's a lot of rotation already in this area, even though the club is out here. What most people make a mistake of doing when they're trying to just kind of do the old traditional out the in swing, there would be no rotation here. They just lift their arms only, and there's no nothing, no connection or no rotation down here. What I love about what he's doing is he's rotating the entire time. So if I bring that back, watch that again. Even right there, he's moving. The club had moved 2 inches, he's moving his hips. That, to me, that's fascinating. And I haven't studied this swing a whole lot, but I just know some people do it later in the swing, but to me, that's just an awesome movement because he's still taking the club out. He has the discipline to be rotating here. What most people would do is as they rotate here, they swing the club way inside. You can do that too as long as you know what you're trying to do on the downswing out of transition. So we're going to go up here at the top. This time we're going to let go through. Notice the body. It's turning, 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 still turning. Club gets over his neck here. He's going to have a real long swing as always. And watch the hands. Watch the hands. You're going to watch them go out. They're going to be over that shoulder. So the hands, if you watch now, everybody's probably looking at his body and going, oh, look at all that. Forget all that. His hands are over that seam, the shirt we're talking about. That sets you up for a fade, I'm telling you. If his hands were on the seam of the shirt right here, he'd have a much better chance of hitting the ball dead straight. He doesn't want to because if he hits it dead straight, he's going to be over here. He's going to try to probably hit it right in this area with a big slice, like that. He ended up partly now. I believe he did hit it right down the pipe here. But bottom line is we're going to let it run and see what we see. So now if you look at the hands, this is just like insane because if you look at how far the hands are out from the center of the body, so the center of the sternum would be, your sternum would be neutral. That'd be neutral hand. That's where most players are trying to put their hands. But if you look at the angle, that's a big angle relative to where his hands are. That's where his hands are. If I took vertical and went there, that's where his hands are located. That's how far the shaft he has laid back. So that's what I say discipline to the plane. You've got to keep the shaft back no matter what style you're doing. Where your hands are is probably going to determine where, so we call it trapping for a draw. So if I was trapping not at impact like what's not typically draw. But if I said, and he knows this, this would be the last person I would have to tell this, but if he wanted to hit a draw from here, his hands would be right back here, right back on the inside portion of his elbow. If you took the shaft angle, that shaft angle would be the hell plenty to hit a draw. You can hit any shot you want. But the hand position here, here, and here is going to change where that ball starts and where it ends. So because he has his hands more away from the sternum, yeah, he's going to hit more of this shot over here and he's going to slice back. If I had his hands right here, though, kind of back behind here, neutral's here, but if I had it behind that, then the shaft releases a little bit more this way, and then you get more of this. Totally different shot. Okay? So your hand position, your shaft, you better have the shaft away from your hands. So if you got this angle, if you took that vertical from your hand position, you better have an offset angle of at least 15 degrees. Somewhere between here, right in there. After you get vertical, you start to get in big trouble. So again, there's a lot of different hand positions you can have. You can have them all between here, but you want to have the shaft laying back, and there's different degrees of that too as well. So, and that's important. And when you study your swing, and it's very, like I said, always in the program, it's very important that you study your swing in slow motion, just kind of understand where you're at, and then always send them in to us for the webinars because that's all we're going to be able to know. Like, we can help you through that if you send your swings in, but if you don't send your swings in, we're all just kind of talking hot air in general. But if you're looking at these things and you're studying your swing against this, you're taking it pretty serious, and you're studying where the hands are location and then where the shaft location is, you can start to forget all the body stuff. Our body, if you study our website, you'll understand what the body is designed to do, what it needs to do, and how to get it better. But the shaft and the hand location in the shaft, that's something that you want to study and learn and try to figure out how you can make it better, because most people are tipping the club head out this way, or they're casting the club head down, they're doing all kinds of different things. Usually doesn't work out with or a combination of both. So that's where it can help. If we go on and move this swing forward, you can still see as his hands are way out away from his body. I mean, this is a long way out. It's amazing. But the shaft's still behind the hands. on these close to the baseline. Now the club's finally tipped off the baseline. That'd be considered kind of on the baseline right there, but you're going to see it's a little outside the hands finally. It's in the perfect angle, but this is pretty good because you're going to see it's finally moved away. It's considered released. And if you watch, it's kind of naturally over from here. He's going to swing that club through. And he still has a lot of hand action. If you look through there, there's still a lot of hand action with this button. Some people say, that it's a rotation, it's not release. But that toe is turned completely over. But I'm telling you, that ball, there's no telling how far it moved. It probably moved somewhere near, look at it right here. The ball's still out here, somewhere in this area. And it's going to end up over here, so it's probably close to 30 yards. Let's try that again. There it is from the outside. A lot of rotation from the lower body and the upper body, but he's got control of the arms. He's going to push the hand outside that front shoulder and keep the shaft back. There's that. And then you're going to see out here in front, again, what we would teach would be, depending on the shot, this is doing what he wants to do here. We would have the hands more here, the same shaft angles for him, actually. It's dead on perfect. That's where it's at right there. It's matching here. We would have the hand, if you're hitting them standard stock shot, we would have it right here, and that would be, everything would be the same. No difference. So, but it just shows you it's a different way of doing it. Typically, if you took the old just verbiage from back in the day, most players that would say you could swing more aggressive trying to hit a fade, and there's a little more rotation of your body, and then there's with a draw it's a little slower, and that's kind of that deceleration we talk about. It's a little slower body, and letting the club kind of pass on its own a little bit. So that's all verbiage and all this, but the techniques are what make it. If you can have somebody swing aggressive, and if their shaft's way back here and their hands are back here, they're not going to hit a fade. They're going to hit, they're going to hit a draw for the most part. When they start pulling their hands out front and getting the shaft angle right, that's going to just start to determine what type of player you are. And there's a lot of ways to find that. Like as I always say, there's the techniques. Playing a lot of golf, not getting on the range and getting 10,000 balls a day. That usually doesn't do much good for anybody. But working on patterns over the winter and starting to try to create new patterns. This is the perfect time of year to start changing. You want to change your golf swing and make it more efficient. This is literally the perfect time of year to start to do that. You don't have to worry about scores so much. You just worry about changing old patterns to new patterns. This is the perfect time to start to adjust to what you want. And as we're going through this session's a fade session, the next one's going to be a draw. I always tell everybody, you don't know what you're going to be great at until you try it. A lot of people, they think they want to hit a fade, they want to hit a fade, they want to hit a fade, and then they realize, well, really, I hit it better hitting a draw, and vice versa. And so what my point is with all this is that you just have to find what works best for you. You really have to find what's the best avenue, and you can't really know unless you try both. And then once you learn both of them, if you learn both of them, then you can usually hit them at will. And you can hit the straight ball a little bit easier because you know what causes it to go left to right or right to left. So I think you need to train both sides of the track just so you know what the middle ground is and where you might want to be, a shot that you might want to lean towards. So pitfalls that I see, I already covered a couple of those, but most of the time when you're talking with fades is people will just, if I go back here, they just lift the club up straight outside, don't turn their body. They just lift the club up outside. They lift it, take it back way outside this way, cut way across it, and they don't have any turn. And it'll cut it if you do that. It's just going to be real weak. Usually it'll pop up with the driver and so forth. Trying to beat down on the ball, vertical. So you try to punch the beat down on the ground with it, and then pull across is another one that's real common. And they'll move the other one. The last one, which is kind of what we talked about today, was as we get up to the top, coming out of transition. So as you get here, you see the hands move out. And as soon as the hands move out like this, so when I say the hands, they change directions. They started to circle back this way. they'll tip, I already said this, but they tip the shaft and the club head over this way. They don't keep the discipline of the shaft back. When your hands circle, it's okay to circle the hands out. That's no problem at all. It's just you can't let the head tip over when you do it. When you tip that head, the club head over, your body's going to lock up. You're going to usually cast the club head down, and you're going to stand up vertically. It's just going to be there's all kinds of problems that are going to pop up. But if you can keep the shaft back, as the hands are, if they're moving out here for this, and you can keep the discipline of this shaft back on that angle, as if you watch him doing this, you'll see, then you're in good shape. See, so his hands moved way out. It definitely moved out for a fade, but his shaft didn't move out for a fade. He's going to fade it because of his hands, not because he tipped it. He's using the club head way over here, cutting way across it. He's using that club head staying behind. So it keeps lag, it keeps the angles right, and then all of a sudden when it comes through across the ball, because you do have to have some across the ball to create the masse, but it can't be severe, because if it's severe, it's going to be high spin, it could be a hard pull, it could be a lot of no telling what could happen. So that's just understanding today, was really understanding the hands, what they're designed to do for a fade, and well, as we covered, for a draw. But then regardless of what the hands are doing out of transition, what the shaft should be doing. So you'll learn that the shaft position here, because Bubba Watson hits more fades and draws than any player on the tour. He can take this driver and draw it 40 yards if he wants to. And the only thing he would change with that, he would change his stance to help with some of that, but all he'd change would be the hand position. He wouldn't change the shaft position, because his shaft position is perfect to hit. I want to go over here one more time. Right here, his shaft position, the shaft angle, I should say, is perfect to hit draw, fade, or straight. All he's got to do is, if he wants to hit a fade, his hands come on out. The shaft stays the same. There's straight ball would be right there. Shaft stays the same. Draw ball would be here. Shaft stays the same. Shaft doesn't have to change for him to do whatever he wants. His foot position doesn't really have to change much either. You can hit a hard draw from this foot position. His hands were coming from here and the shaft was coming from here. That would give him a direct angle, and you'd start to see more of that. So when he hits his irons, usually with a draw, and he hits his woods with a fade, but his shaft angle remains the same. That's what most people need to focus on. Is getting that shaft. If you're hitting a fade and you got the shaft too vertical, you're going to have a little bit too much spin. You should try to start to angle off that shaft a little bit more off of your hands. That'll take some of the spin off. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up for questions, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, man, I know you've probably answered this in what you've said, but could you just boil it down a little more for me for my specific deal, where let's say that Bubba is set up on the white tree down to just to the right of the bunker there, and instead of cutting it back off that bunker, it goes right over that bunker when he tries to hit the cut, which is what happens with me. Like right now, when I'm trying to set up to hit a cut, like I'll see the shot and the wind is helping, right to left, and it's like, oh man, if I could just bust a fade down there, if I'm a left-handed golfer, if I'm Bubba, and I'm gonna just bust that fade down there, and I'm gonna have this little wedge, from the flat, and instead I just nuke it right out of bounds over that tree.
Yep.
Like, in other words, it's kind of the double cross kind of thing.
Yeah, double cross.
What causes that? Like, why am I doing that instead of hitting the cut?
All right, so I'm going to go back, and this is a good question because it goes back to what we're saying, but it was answered, but I didn't go into that, and this is more specific. But if your shaft angle is this right here, that's really a neutral shaft angle. Let's just forget hands for a second. And then I took it, and let's just say that's neutral. We'll call this flat, which is simple. Most people understand what that is. So that shaft was on that angle with the hand. And then I took this and I said, this would be, I'm not going to go vertical, but I'm going to go pretty close. But I'm going to go off the hand plane, and we're going to go up here. All right. So with the more vertical, if you just took the hands, let's just say they're on the exact same position where they moved out to the front. And if you take this right here, the flatter the shaft angle for a right-handed golfer, and I'll pull up a right-handed golfer so everybody can study it because I left it on lefty, but this is going to be a more of somebody that's going to flatter the shaft angle is here, the more you're going to push the ball. The more vertical the shaft angle is, the more pulls you're going to get. So this would be more vertical. And then more neutral, you're going to be able to control the ball kind of. That's why most of the teachers out there in this day and generation, they know how we teach it. We're all a little bit different, but most coaches know they want that shaft in the center neutral because you have a little bit more options and you don't have as big a misses. So if that makes sense. But so what happens is I'm going to show you, bring it down a little bit. Where's this? And so because he has a neutral shaft angle, but his hands are way out front, he can start the ball more like even, I mean, a true slice, I mean, really, but with this low spin and ended up over here. But this is vertical here. What happens is when you get down around the baseline, is most players, what's happening is this toe is turning like what you're doing when you hit that pull and it goes out. Like, so if you look like where the head is relative to the hands, if that is here, what's going to happen is down by the ball, this shaft, let's just say the shaft is on kind of vertical at this angle and not laid back enough. What's going to happen is they're going to tip the toe over and as they're hitting the ball and just dead pull it. That's the typical. I mean, that's the fastest, safest answer. They're just going to tip that toe turns over. Even if you try to hang on to it, I've seen players, you hang on to it all day and it's still going over here like this. Just because the shaft, the head is too far up on top of hands where because vertical would be, like if we took it here, vertical's there. Now, you don't have to be there. You're probably not there, but you might be right there. If you are, you're right in it. There's players that play from there, but it's tricky because if that toe turns over as you hit the ball, it's going to be a dead pull, you know. So that's what I would say is I always try to get players to flatten the shaft out enough to where you just don't see a lot of players on the tool and the shaft is on these angles. The hand position doesn't really matter. It does depend on what shot you're trying to hit, but if you can get the shaft angle correct, the side of the shaft angle correct, then you'll have a lot better chance of when the club naturally releases through the shot and rotates through the shot, it won't be a dead pull or push. Because your shaft, the angle the shaft is on starting down really determines a lot of that. And so, again, this would be steep. Some people call it upright steep. It doesn't matter what language you use. Language is language. I use traditional language because that's the way I kind of grew up using it. Some people call it different now, but like this would be that'd be extreme. You know, somebody there. But anything on this side is all flat, and anything on this side is all real steep. This could be shallow. This could be steep. This could be upright. This could be flat. Whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. You're going to see different players that play in these gray zones. These would be gray zones right in here. I'd be really pushing it, but right in here. You can play right in there. If you're in the gray zone, let's just say that your shaft and Jim, your swing's in the gray zone. So we'll look at, let's say, okay, you're in this area. That's about your angle. You're kind of off the neckline. There's players that win major championships off the neckline. So if you're having that and you're hitting a dead pull, it can be club face control. You know, if you with somebody that loses, one thing that you're not seeing, what we're seeing here with his shaft is because it's on the right angle, but it's also resistant. So this is more of a face on what I'm about to talk about now. Is the shaft the club hasn't kicked down. He hasn't lost the angle. Because if you lose like so in the teaching philosophy, it's not philosophy, it's fact, is if the club face, let's say the side of the shaft is controlled and the club face is like if you were iron by iron, a machine, the more lag you have, the more the ball goes. If you're a right-handed golfer, let me switch it back so we can look at right-handed golfers. I'm all confused here. So if you're locked into a machine and the shaft is going back or whatever it's doing, if you see here, basically if you're swinging, the face is fully controlled. It just depends at that point where the face is, if that makes sense. And so lag is right So if I'm back here, if I go, let me go back. So back here, he has resistance. His shaft angle is correct. On a face-on view, you would see the shaft would be up and still, you could say cocked, whatever you want to do, but it still has lag. If that shaft, what sometimes we don't see is that this angle might be the same, but the club head is a lot more down, so he's already lost an angle, or she. And if you lost that angle, that's a left miss. All right, and if you have the shaft, if the shaft is still resistant, or the head, what you want to say, whatever you want to call it, if you still have lag and the shaft is right, lag is right. So the more lag, that's why if you have too much lag, you'll hit it right. And if you have no lag, you'll usually pull it. You'll usually hit that yank. And so if you're in the gray area, like we talked about, like so your shaft is kind of steeper. It's a little steeper, but it's not like horrible. Then what will happen is you got to look at the face on. You have to look at like, are you able to resist with the side of the shaft coming down enough, or are you casting the club head too much? And so with you, if you're with yours, Jim, because you have some pretty good angles, it could be that you're casting the club head out too early. You have to resist the side of the shaft more. That makes sense.
That makes total sense. In fact, my self-evaluation would be that since I'm somebody who is used to tipping,
yep,
and then squaring late,
yep,
with my hands, when I go now to try to hit a fade, it's still hard for me to hold the toe off.
yep.
So it's my self-evaluation is that it's a face control problem where I just need to have more patience through the strike and just let the heel come through, and not worry about, as a tipper and a roller, the thing I always had to worry about was a shank, right?
Yep.
I always had to worry about getting the heel in there first and meeting the club with the hosel.
Yep.
So that was like the greatest fear in my life going out to play golf is worrying about that. So now for me it's really hard to hold the heel off, or rather hold the toe off and let the toe come in late. So it's just I'm just thinking it's a face control problem. So that you actually absolutely.
If you watch a lot of these faders, like this is KJ Choi, if you watch, there's a lot of face roll right there. I mean, that face is turned over. And he's a fader. I mean, these are all the three I pulled over. I mean, if you look at the three that, I mean, there can be face control. Usually the face control is more of it's just an effect. A lot of times. You should, I think there's, because I don't want to contradict some of the things, that you should train face control. But at the end of the day, when you're letting it all loose, it's either there or it's not. And so I'm going to show you, like, if you go back and look at Bruce Litsky here. There's a lot of, I mean, his hands are completely formed, they're completely turned over. If you watch it, I mean, you can see it right there. His right arm's over his left arm quite a bit. And so what I mean by that is he doesn't really have a face control. He's definitely not holding off the toe, but what he's doing is, one thing I would go over and probably try to explain a little bit better is this angle, it'd be from the face on view, but like, let me just pop it back up. But as he's coming down, that shaft is very resistant this way. And so this part is all, I don't like to talk about all this too much because it doesn't mean much, but he's resistant in that side of the shaft area. This section of the shaft, which is the most important, he's got that resisted and up and away and back. Whereas I feel like you're probably losing some of that. If I move this off, this is probably starting to cast down a little bit this way. And when that casts down, if you did try to hold on to it, it'd be a little superficial, and so it'd be kind of a fake pull. And then if you just release it, you swing naturally without thinking about it, it's still a pull. My point would be to probably try to make sure that this is a little bit more resistant away for longer. And if you can do that, then the club will release later, and then you won't have the pull. It'll be the later the club releases, then typically that's more right. So as a right-handed golfer. So that's my whole point. It is right. And like I was saying earlier, I kind of got lost track, but if you're putting yourself in iron by iron and you just have the machine hang on to it the entire time and the face was locked in, you hit it dead right. If you had it where the shaft tipped halfway down on the plane and hit the ball, it would go dead left. And then there's a certain point where it's neutral, and it gives you, and then there's a lot of spots in between that. That's why you see a lot of different types of swings. But the shaft should be resistant back away, not casting down. Or the club you surely don't want casting down. You want the side of the shaft resistant a lot longer, I think. I think if you resisted longer, then you wouldn't hit the pool. So take a look at that here in just a little bit. Does that answer some of your question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I'm like I say, I think part of what I'm fighting is just the vestigial remnants of really rolling and tipping.
Yep.
And so that I think, in my mind, once I can master a fade, then I'm gonna have both sides of the rainbow, so to speak, and that's why I'm asking you about that.
We'll look at that, and then we'll probably go into more of that shaft resistance part, maybe the third, because I do want to do, since we did fade tonight, I want to do draw next week, and that'll actually probably help because you have to have more resistance with the draw, a true draw. Let's see if we can pop this. This is another good one to look at for fade because I've seen him hit a lot of balls. Most of the time, it's always a fade, but he can hit it. He can hit a draw because I'm going to explain here in a little bit. If you watch, he has one of those. It's just when I used to watch him on the range, you can just see it. I mean, it's so easy to see how far his hands move out. So he established his transition there. And if you look, he starts to really push that away. But what I always liked about his swing is you can see how much he fought that shaft. You can see how much his hands a minute ago were right here. So they've moved out that much. But look how far his shaft's down. So, and his feet are open, so he's probably going to try to hit it a little bit. It's hard to say here, that ball with the camera angle, what he's really trying to do. Most of the time he hits a fade. He can hit draws, though. Don't get me wrong. Because when you have a shaft angle like this, you can hit anything you want when the shaft's down. Now, most people are going to be a little steeper than that. That's the reality. And if you are, you can use hand position to kind of help you out. You can have your hands back a little bit more in here, and then a little steeper angle doesn't hurt you as much. Because if you have the hands moving over here on this side too far and a steep shaft, good luck. It's just not much. It's not even worth having a conversation with. It's just not going to work. But when you have the hands out as far as he has them here, and you have the shaft back, well, then you got all this space. What Tiger Woods wanted to. So when Tiger Woods had that much space right there, nobody could beat him. Nobody could beat him because he could do whatever he wanted. When he lost space, now his was a little bit different because he would trap his hands. He'd get his hands trapped, and the shaft was on probably about the same angle, and he couldn't hit it, and he just hit it right. It goes back to exactly what we just talked about earlier. But when you have this space, so Tiger always tried to create this space, get the hands out front. When he did, and the instructors that worked best with him, Butch Harmon is really number one. He had space with his hands because the shaft, he never changed the shaft. He probably changed the shaft angle his entire life as far as downswing. But his hand position is what he needed space for. When he started to work on some of the stack and tilt stuff and all that, he started to get his hand strapped back here, and his shaft, he had that problem to start with, so it just made it worse. That's one of the reasons why he got more injured and he got worse and worse and worse instead of going back to what his bread and butter was, which was more hands in front of his body, shaft on the right angle and so forth. So I kind of got off track a little bit with that, but it's important to know, and you got to know what's best for your own swing, what you can and can't do. One, to have a lot of this, what he's doing, you have to have a lot of shoulder mobility back in here. It's a lot of people who pull their hands out, keep the shaft that far back. You wouldn't think this guy has a lot of mobility. He's a big dude. Big when I say he's an overweight guy, he'd tell you that. When he went to the gym, he started working out, and he got worse with his golf game. He quit working out. He doesn't work out, doesn't do anything, but naturally he's mobile. And the reason why when he worked out, he was doing the wrong workouts. Kind of know this through the grapevine, but he was doing isometric training and basic weightlifting, and that's the worst thing you really do for golf. I mean, it's really, you got to do things that are mobile, keep your whole body functioning and so forth. But naturally, he's very, very, very mobile in his shoulder. You can tell from here because most people can't get that type of angle down with their shoulder to hip and then keep the shaft on that kind of discipline. And it takes two things. It takes one, talent, number one, but it takes mobility. And that's one thing with golf is mobility is probably number one. I've seen great players that were very tight, so I don't want to say that you only have to be mobile to be good because it's not true. It's just that you see more good players that are more mobile than you do that are tight. But you can be tight if you're efficient. you can be tight. But what you're seeing, the goal with such a junior golfer, you're raising and all this, and Tai Chi talks about, I think all the martial arts, you want to have tight patterns, and you want to have full range of mobility to be loose if you need it. And so you're trying to get as mobile as you can possibly get, and you're trying to connect all the joints from joint center to joint center through whatever you're trying to do. That'd be the perfect. You could build a perfect golfer for whatever height they were and body they were. It'd be full mobility and then full joint connection. That'd be it. That'd be it. And then the last thing you have with that would be full coordination, like coordinating the mobility to the connection and making it full coordination for whatever sport, it's throwing a football or whatever you're doing. So you want all the mobility to be able to do whatever you need to be able to do, but then you need the connectedness to be able to make it work from point A to point B to point C and all this so forth. And then you want the fluidity, the coordination pattern. If you got those three things, you have it. You're at the top of the food chain. And if you look at all these players, a lot of times we look at it kind of like we might be looking at it in these forms where you're looking at it with pictures and so forth. But just watch them swing, you'll see the flow, even here in slow motion. And I recommend that to golfers as well. So a lot of my juniors, I'll tell them to watch swings in full speed and in slow motion, and when they do it, not to think about like positions or anything, but just watch them move, and you'll see the connectedness, the movements, the softness, the hardness. You start to see all the things that I'm talking about, and I think that can help a lot of golfers as well. If you only watch in slow motion, it'll get so like this. It's so slow. It's awesome. I think it's great to see and everything. But really, I would watch it normal speed with a lot of players and then break it down in slow motion, kind of go back and forth. But because you want to see the full speed, because you need to see the reality. If you only see slow motion, you're probably going to swing too slow. Really, and you can swing too slow. Trust me. And you can swing too kind of abrupt and quickly as well. You start to find out what works best for you by doing that. But I like to look at it because you can see those three things that I was talking about. You can see the mobility, you can start to see the connectedness, and then the coordination. And those are the three things that I think that make it work, and that's why kettlebells are so good for golf. I don't know if you ever hear me not say in a webinar at some point where I mentioned kettlebells, but there's a reason for that. And it's not by I'm not just saying it because I like to say it. That's for sure. I'm saying it because I've seen the work it does with the players and how much it helps them. So, we got any other questions?
Matt, is there any time that you recommend statically opening the face to get a fade, or do it all with hand position?
You don't have to, because if you want, I'm going to show you. I'm going to go back and show you. Most players will go closed and open, and so I'm going to try to answer that question the best I can. I think I know where you're going with it. Are you talking about in the backswing?
No, static. Just like opening up at address.
Oh yeah, no, that's a classic. Yeah, for sure. I think that's not a bad way. You still have to have though. That was old classic Jack Nicklaus. If you go back to Golf My Way, or there was a book I used to read now. I've had it memorized forever. I can't remember the name of it now, though. It was a Jack Nicklaus book before Golf My Way, and he always talked about when he was trying to fade or draw, he would turn the face down a little bit, or maybe a little bit. We're talking a degree, basically, in or out a little bit for fade or draw. But you still have to have, you can trick it. Now, there's tricks here, and so if you get to a really advanced level, like Sergio can hit a fade with the shaft way behind and the hands way back, because he can trick it down at the bottom. And I say tricking, it's just getting his hands, as soon as he hits the ball, his hands start swinging dead, kind of dead left, right in that zone. I don't know how you teach somebody that. I certainly wouldn't want to have it on here to do that, because there are other ways to do it. And I don't want to say that what I'm saying tonight is the only ways to do it. I'm just saying you're going to see this as the mass, but there's also some really high-level tricks you can do if you, if you had Sergio Garcia on here tonight, he could go in here and go, I don't do that. I do it this way. And I would agree. I wouldn't disagree. I would just say if you look at the masses, this is the way you're going to see it. The hands are going to go out. Shaft's going to go hang back a while, and then you have better face control. But even if you have the face open at address, I've seen players that can open it 20 degrees, the thing's wide open and still pull the ball. And I can see them close it down and they still hit a, the push, you know what I'm saying? Because of what's going on with their hand style and what's going on with the side of the shaft. But if you have your swing in order, so if it's somebody like your swing is really in order and you're hitting the ball really well, I would tell you if you're trying to hit a baby fade, open the face a couple of degrees, retake your grip. You got to make sure you take a new grip and then hit the ball. Just hit it. It'll go. I think if you're having a hard time as far as the pattern every time, getting that same shot over every time, that's what we're trying to talk about tonight. But if you've already got your patterns grooved in and you're just trying to tighten the dispersion, open that face a degree or two at him or at address, readjust your grip to normal, and then hit the ball. That's the way I do it. That's the way I was. I think that's a Jack Nicklaus tip that'll never go away, in my opinion. That's what Tiger did too. Do we have any other questions or anything? Or did that answer your question there?
Yes, it did. Thanks.
Oh, you got it. I think I covered everybody out here tonight. Let's see. KJ, yeah, we saw this earlier. I'll pull him up. KJ is the first one I ever really saw. I noticed this when I was teaching in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and the first time I saw him hit, I went, he was a nobody at that time, just like most of us, I mean, he was just a guy that was on the range. That I saw it. He was at the FedEx, and I remember I was with a friend of mine. I said, this guy's going to be a star one day, and because I was watching his ball flight was the same. I never heard of the guy, and the other one was Ian Leggett, and I wrote an article. Ian ended up winning a couple of times on the tour after that, and he kind of retired early. I don't know if it was injury or whatever, but there was two guys that I noticed on that range that I'd never heard of before, and those were the two. And this is, 20 plus years ago. But KJ, he was the one that most impressed me, and yeah, he was the first guy I'd ever seen where I didn't even know what it was, where I really saw the hands really come out. And I think he even did it more then. He really pushed the hands out off the shoulder, but yet he hit this. I just noticed how much space he had. I mean, I really didn't know how to describe it other than I felt like that, he's only going to hit the ball left to right every single time he hits it. And it's not going to slice. It's not going to be a 70-yard slice. It's just going to be a, 3-yard fade. And it's every time. And he never missed it. And you can look on the range, and if you have somebody, a lot of times amateurs look at it and they just give the pros too much credit. Oh, they all hit it straight and they all hit it good. And that's not true. That's not true. You go watch Brad. I used to watch Brad Faxon hit on the range. And when I watched Brad Faxon, it's no disrespect to him, but he wasn't the ball striker. He was one of the worst out there. He hit sideways on the range, but most people would look at that and go, look how straight he's hitting it. And he's not even hitting it straight. He's not hitting where he's aiming. I remember Nick Fallow he kind of got into swing dips there towards the end of his career, and he was working his tail off trying to get it back and all that. This is a world-class player. And I remember watching him out there hitting it sideways on the driving range, and people still think they were doing it on. He shoots like 76, 77 over at reports that most guys are shooting under par. And I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just saying that most amateurs don't really know exactly what they're looking at. They just look and say, oh, they all hit it straight, and they don't all hit it straight. They still don't on the tour. There's ball strikers out there that are much different level than the other one standing right next to them. Now, they might be the same, depends on who's standing there. But I'm just saying, in general, you'll see ball flights that are too high. You'll see ball flights that are too crooked. You don't think it. You're hitting it the same flag. You think, oh, at 30 foot, he's only missed it like 30 feet. And you watch somebody like Tiger Woods in his heyday, that hits 100 balls, and there's not one ball within 5 feet from 175 yards. It's just there's some that are just different level, and they don't all hit it the same. Where they can make up for it, if they don't, if they're out there for a reason. It's probably a combination of scrambling and short game and other things. But KJ was one of those that just really radically different with ball striking. Like when I watched him hit, I knew, he didn't have to putt great to make a lot of money. And and what I noticed, like I said, back then, I just, I was watching at fast speed. I didn't have a camera with me. It wasn't any of those types of things. And so it was just one of those things I just noticed. If I said back then what I saw, it would have been that he had a lot of space and that I'd have thought he was going to slice the ball. And the reason why I would have thought he was going to slice it, he didn't slice it, was because of how much his hands came out. They probably even came out more back when I saw him. He's probably worked on it a little bit, but his hands, it seemed like, came out even more. That's how is he not slicing the ball? But if you look, it looks like that when his hands come out. But again, back, then I didn't really understand some of the things that I do now. But that the shaft stayed back. So the hands can come out. You can bring them out all day long as the shaft stay back. They come out and bring them down. So as he keeps going, eventually he's going to probably hit a cut because the hands are out. So it's going to, at the ball, then the flip face, down at the ball here, then all of a sudden there's just a little enough masse at the very bottom to create maybe just a couple yards of a fade. But that was one player that I thought was just amazing. And all this other stuff, and there's other things that matter. And again, most of the time, you guys know that's been on here for a long time that I talk about, how to sync up the swing, transition, and all these other things, and the float and contain and all that. But this is a little bit different. I wanted to cover on how to hit a fade, and then we'll cover out hit a draw, and then we'll start to work back in the middle of all that. But this was a player that, when I first saw him, I was like, how is he not slicing? Because his hands would come so far out, they push, and it looks more than what we're seeing here. But if you look there, I mean, it's really actually pretty traditional. That ball, his shaft's right on the shoulder plane, really right where we teach it. His hands are probably a little bit more out of where we would teach it. Right there, we would, I'd have to back up the frame, but it would be a little bit more. Our hand position, what we would teach to be neutral, would be right in here. Again, the shaft would stay the same, though. If you can keep the shaft the same, so if you said what's most important, well, I mean, I think we already talked about it. The shaft's most important. Where you keep the shaft loaded is going to determine more. If you have space and you can keep the shaft back, I think anybody can be a really great ball striker. And so, but it's hard because when most people pull the hands out this way, they're pulling the head of the club and losing resistance, and they're also tipping the club head down towards the ball. So they're losing the resistance not only in the lag, but they're also losing the resistance and casting it out sideways on top of their hands, which is a no-go. Those aren't going to work for you. So, but like I said, those were some players that just, you can definitely see the circle. It's almost like the Tai Chi circle that we talk about. They certainly have some of that. Like I said, in general, it's a straight line. Your body you can train in circles, but then at the end of the day, when you start, even these guys, they're doing, they look like they're swinging a little bit of a circular action where you see the hands kind of work out in a circle. But in general, they're feeling like a straight line. Your training in what's reality is going to be different. Any questions on that?
Yeah, this may be ridiculous, but, I see KJ when he sets up almost with the hosel at the ball.
Yep.
And would it be ridiculous to think that, maybe if I would get that image in my head with the hosel on the ball, that, my brain might say, okay, you don't want to hit it here, right? Yep. So we're going to be coming across from the inside a little bit more. I mean, is that ridiculous, or is that,
Well, I think you should see most of the tour players that hit fades had it on the heel of the club, and it's kind of getting into stuff that's kind of old golf digest type of stuff. But it is true. It's not something I'd spend a lot of time worrying about because I think a lot of that stuff happens and they don't even know it. Like BJ Singh, I happened to be at him at Byron Nelson. I was with Wes and our good friends, and that ball, he's setting up. I'm watching 5 feet right where his caddy's at, and he was more inside of the club than where KJ is. And it wasn't even on the club, and that's his normal thing. And that's not. He doesn't even know. He only knows because people have told him he puts it there. He doesn't know that. And so a lot of these things you're seeing more. It seems like there's more players that have the ball on the heel of the club on the tour than there are on the toe. Now, if you're in, because a lot of them when they get to the toilet, they're trying to take it a little bit more outside, get the club more in front of them so they can hit the fade a little bit more because they can rely on it a little bit better. And these are all just kind of at certain levels. But there are players that have it towards the toe, but just count. Look at how many players that have it on the toe of the club relative to the inside of the club. There'll be far more players that have it on the inside of the golf club than they do on the toe. Just a fact. I think this was Bob's question too earlier that about the face going back. And what I see a lot of times with the guy that fade the ball, talking about the face being open and all that stuff. But if you watch, like, I mean, it's already shut down right there. That face is shut. I mean, it depends on what it's not really shut in our style because what we talk about, that's actually pretty neutral. And most people would tell you that's shut. That had definitely ain't toe up. So that, and if you look at all the players that hit that cut, all right, we'll go back to Craig Stadler here. This would be a good one, I think. I get that. I'll make that happen. So watch Craig Stadler on your left. I don't know who that is on the right. What? There you go.
That's funny. I was going to comment on that earlier about how shut he was going back.
Yeah, that's how. So there's no that toe's not open. They don't get it here. What happens is by the time when he gets done laying it down, that's how the toe gets, where it needs to be or whatever. I don't like to use that terminology at all, but but you'll see, like even Bubba Watson, there's just not many, the toe open thing, the toe in general, I mean, it's that thing is so long gone, it really, I mean, I wouldn't say modern golf instruction, but the guys that really understand what's going on, the new square is really closed relative to what it used to be, I'll put it that way. And with the guys that really understand what's going on. That face, I mean, again, that's square to what we're doing, but that most people would say that's shut. They would say that's shut. That's not shut in our style. That's square. That club face it's perfect. It's nothing wrong with it. So, but that would be because when the toe gets open, it's open. It is open, and so there's no need for it. You'll see more players keep the face down in this generation than keep it open in the takeaway. Because if the toe's up, it's open, and it's open a lot. It's probably open. I don't know the amount of degrees that have to be studied from the scientific standpoint, but I'm going to say if I had to guess and just put it on the spot, I would say at least 25 degrees. That means you're dealing with 25 degrees of rotation that you're going to have to make up for. Most players keep the face down. They're always taught, well, you're shut, get it open. But if you look at the great players, how many players have kept it shut? I mean, what they considered back in the day shut, it was like every player. Trevino to even Hogan, he got it shut down and he opened it up. And then Nicklaus got it shut down. Luke Donald, I mean, you got all kinds of players that do that. Look at Jim Furyk. I mean, my Lord. That thing shut down like crazy. Dustin Johnson. It depends on what you call it. I mean, it's just not what you think it is. That's why we talk about the side of the shaft. You get the side of the shaft angle correctly, you'll feel the firmness of what that's like, and you won't, whether you're hitting a fade or a draw or a straight ball, it won't really matter. There's a certain firmness to that. And I'm going to make a video on that too, about how to.
Could I say, Matt, could I make the statement that keeping the face shut down is an easy way to keep the rotation of the body going back? If you open the face, the minute you open the face going back, it's easy to disconnect your arms from the body's rotation. In proportion to if you keep it shut, you have to rotate. You have to turn in order to keep the club in front of you or, in control. Whereas if you roll it open, the club can, it's already back there by itself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just easier. It's easier to do any shot from closed than it is from open.
Yeah, it is. And it closed is square. It's a new square. So, I mean, it really is square. But it's just like if you studied the game for a long time and you've studied, because I've been doing this for, it's my 24th year, but I've been studying it ever since I was able to walk. And so everything that I was ever taught for years and years and years was square was open. And it is now. It's open. It's not square. It's open. And so um, when you're when you do what we're teaching, when you get the right wrist to the bend correctly, if you're a right-handed golfer, out of the takeaway, and that face it's going to feel shut. And you're going to if you look at the tour, you're going to see more players doing that. Now you're going to see a correct couples every now and then. There's probably more. Trying GF Ogilvy, and then who does it that opens it out a little bit more. I could probably come up with more, but that doesn't really matter. I mean, you're going to see more that keep it the face down in the takeaway and out of the takeaway that get it open. And it's just square, and that's the thing. And there's degrees, and there's this, and there's overkill on both sides of that or whatever, but the amateur golfer, which is all I really care about. I mean, if it's a pro, I deal with everybody individually. The amateur golfers, they get the putt too open, either on the downswing or the backswing. Usually it's a problem with getting the face too open. And so it is true, when you get the face open going out of the takeaway, you're going to see players that don't really engage with their body too well. So I'll pull up a player here to kind of show you. It's a phenomenal player. That's why transition trumps everything. Let's see.
Takes the club outside as he takes.
Yeah, so, I mean, even here, he's still not really as open as I even thought he was. He's still open a lot. But right there, he's definitely wide open. Sure, even drawn into it or whatever. So if you look here, the toe's straight down, but I'm going to try to get it going back a little bit. That's open. That's not open. That is not open right there. It'll change from there. That's interesting. That now it rolled open. It's a little camera's a little bit too close, but it's rolled open right there. It's starting to roll it open. It wasn't open going back, but then all of a sudden he rolled it going open. Then he torqued up his body. And, but if you look now, it's not open. Take it off. I'm having on my software, but I'm using a different computer. This is a good one to look at just because he does have some of what you were talking about, a little bit more disconnect. Typically players that roll it open have a little bit more disconnect. Man, we'll try this one. Yeah, that's a big good one. So even right there, that face isn't closed right there. It's not definitely not open. That's what we talk about right there. It'll change. I mean, I haven't seen the swing or anything. And he starts to roll it open more when the toes really hanging down really late, and he torques up his body. It's really, it's a late way to kind of load up. Let's see, oh, yeah, sorry about this. Trying to find one that shows it all the way through. Maybe this one. There we go. It gets a toe down here. He starts to load up a little bit. If you watch, then after he comes down, the face, if you can see it here, that face, furthest thing from being open you can never imagine. That's what most people would say is shut. It's not. You know, again, he plays a little bit, not steep shaft thing, but it's a little steeper than most would want. The hands, if you're watching, this is another fake player, pulls the hands out away, so he moves the hands, but he's got the head back. And there you go. A little bit of a fade. I mean, when I talk a little bit, we're talking maybe a yard or two, not much. But if you watch going back, hopefully we can pulling it going back, because he really doesn't really roll it open much in his takeaway. He keeps it face down. He's got his hands out, but his face is down. Up in here, it starts to break and roll. That's that disconnectedness you're talking about, Jim. Then all of a sudden, he connects, closes the face, which is square, and there you go. So, I mean, I see more people when I'm at the highest level that what the normal teacher would say is closed, or the normal amateur would say was definitely closed. And I see amateurs all the time that think their face is square and perfect with the toe up, and it's anybody that plays for a living would say it's wide open. So I just think it's better shut, but it's not shut, it's square. Do we have any other questions or anything? And it's the same with the draw, really. I mean, you're going to learn, like you'll see, like, because if you move that face open, that it just makes for a long, long day. I don't see how people really do. I can see where you can do it. I can roll it open and close it back down, but you're doing a lot of stuff that's unnecessary. Maybe do a video. I mean, actually, all my videos talk about it. Every single one of them talks about that after the takeaway is complete, how the right wrist is supposed to bend and not cock. If you roll the left forearm, your flip face will be open. If you keep your forearm down and your right wrist bend the correct way, you will not have the face open. The toe up is something that the toe should not be up after the takeaway, put it that way. And you can underroll it, you can overdo it too the other way, but I'd rather see people overdo it the other way than I would be having the toe up. No more questions or anything? Okay, cool. Well, I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving, and I look forward to talking to everybody here in a couple of weeks. Again, just send swings in. I know we didn't get as many swings in this week to analyze because of probably the travel and the holidays and all that stuff, but we'll plan on going here in December. I know we'll at least have 2. Last year we did 3 in December. We'll probably try to match that again for the holidays. Do 3 webinars to start talking a little bit more about training, physical training, which is going to be like probably the most important thing you can do if you do it correctly. That's the key word, if you do it correctly. And how to train your body, get your body to match up with some of the things you're working with your golf swing. So that being said, everybody have a great Thanksgiving, and I hope everybody travel safely and enjoys themselves.
Hey, Matt, quick question on sending in videos. I'm reduced to the indoor dome for the rest of the winter.
Okay.
What type of thing would you like to see from the dome? I mean, what could help you help me from the dome?
Yeah,
from
question.
Outside of 70 yards.
Yeah, I would say anything down the line would be good, especially in the dome, because you're going to have a hard time across that railing and all that to get the video and face on. If you can do face on, that's fine. But I would tell you to hold your tripod, and then make sure that the video is where it's stable, and that it's down the line, basically between your foot and your hand line. So like when you angle it, it needs to be squared up to your foot to hand line. So basically, if I was videoing him, I would have it right between his feet, right here, like that. If you get over here too far, you change the angle. If you get over here on the ball line, it's too far. But if you stay right kind of on the hand line and come straight back, That's a better way to view face on. About hip height is about the right height that I need, that works really well. If you get too low, I do a lot of my videos low. It's just there's a reason for that, but it's not like if I want to analyze it, I would probably go at hip height, about right in here. So about hip height and then right on the hand line. That would be, if your face on it's hip height and it's caddy face on as straight as you can get it. So it really on the ball position level if you're doing face on. If you can get, you don't want to be way out in front of the ball or way behind. You can be right on the ball position and shoot that hip height. And that's what I'd be looking for. And in slow motion, because if it's slow motion, there's times where I don't want slow motion and there's times where I do. If I'm looking from a technical aspect and we're trying to change movements, yeah, we might do slow motion like that. If we're looking at transition and everything's working well, but we're having transition problems, I want to see full speed because then I can see what's going on there. There's two different ways. But the best way to do the videos is make start your own YouTube channel, which I know you have, and make videos and just start keeping up. It's like a video journal, basically. Instead of written words are fine and all that stuff, but people, they end up with 10 million words and stuff like that, where video just, you don't need words, you just have it. Like, okay, yeah, is it better? It's not. It takes about 5 seconds to figure it out. You don't have to play these games and writing 10,000 notes when it still looks the same. Video, it either is better or it's not better. It either is better or it's not better. It's real simple. You don't need a journal for all that. So the video, and there's times a written journal, I have every junior that I teach, and even adults that are serious about it, I have them keep a journal because a journal is good for playing, like how to play courses, styles of courses, and like some mistakes that you made that you can. But most people, what they end up doing in journals is written journals. They write all these techniques down. They don't write down how to play golf. They write down how to play golf swing. And then they get lost in the jungle and they get 10,000 freaking things in their head, and they don't know which one works and doesn't work. That's what the video journal can help you with. It's just like a YouTube, I think, can help people. So, and a written journal should be really, in my opinion, only for like how you're progressing and not what you're working on. Not that your right arm's this way, your left arm's that way, your left ear's this way, your right ear's that way. It's really about like how you're playing the game and how with the mistakes you're making and how you're progressing or not progressing. It should be about everything that affects your game, in my opinion. It should be all the way from diet to how you practice, to how you're playing, to the reps you're getting in, to how much you're not getting in, to everything that's involved. And then what you lose, well, if you do it for a long period of time, you'll run into patterns of where you play really well and where you don't, and you can start to come into those areas where you're not and go, well, it's because I was doing this too much. I was hitting too many range balls. I was doing this, or I got off my deal. Those are the things that are going to be, in my opinion, where the video is so important because I think most people on here are trying to improve their ability to hit the ball, and I agree with that. But there's more to it than that. Video journal is going to be more to that. Written journal is going to be how you play the game. Two different things. So, but always send a YouTube link. If you can send a YouTube link in slow motion from your phone, I'm good to go. I mean, I can help you from there. If it's in full speed, there's times where I want full speed. Most of the time, it's slow motion can help me kind of see what I need to see. If that makes sense.
Would you rather see a full swing, or would you rather see a like a training swing?
No, I'd rather see a full swing just because I want to see where we're at, and then I can. You can always send in one 70-yard shot, sand wedge, and then one 7-iron full speed because I do want to see. I want to see kind of the ending result because I can kind of help you train from there. But I think 1 and 1 is good. So if you had one at 70 yards, 70 yards kind of tells me a lot of the story. 50 yards is telling me half the story. 70 yards is telling me a lot of the story. Once I get 150, it is the story at that point. This is where you're at. This is like where you are, and like so if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
So I would say send the 70-yard swing is going to be good. Mark it as 70 yards on your YouTube thing. Say 70-yard swing. And a lot of times, the 70-yard swing to me always looks like about 120 yards for most people. But like usually it's about 120 because when I have players come out and try to hit a 50-yard shot at the range, they'll come out first time, they want to train, they're ready, they're fired up. I've been working on a 50-yard shot video. You talked about all this, and here's my 50-yard shot. It looks like they're going 120 yards in their backswing, like they're going Bubba Watson style and they hit it 50 yards. I'm like, that ain't it. You know, you want to build it up the right way, and most people are swinging a lot longer than they think, is what I've noticed. And then some people swing shorter than they think, and that's very rare, though, very rare. Usually it's they're putting way too much effort in, and there's not enough hit on the ball. So when a player mishits the ball, the number one thing they're going to do is have an overswing because they mishit the ball. They're not hitting it solid. So if they don't hit it solid and you're mishitting it, it's not going anywhere. What are you going to do? You're going to swing further and further and further to hopefully get it just slap that thing down there somewhere. So I find more problems in overswinging. Overswinging is not a problem. Overswinging does not hurt anybody. Bubba Watson, John Daly did pretty well at it last I remember. It's what overswinging is whenever it's the subconscious of not hitting the ball solid. And if you're doing that, if you hit the ball solid and you overswing, that is John Daly, Carlos Franco, and Bubba Watson. They made a hell of a lot of money doing it that way because they don't mishit the ball. So the further you swing back, you really don't lose anything, you gain. But most people don't hit it solid, swinging 2 feet back away from it on the chip shot. So our whole philosophy is developing in that area coming up. But I would say, again, going long story short, 70 yards, and then work your way into like just one shot at 150 or 170, whatever your 7-iron goes, but it doesn't matter. And shoot it down the line, slow motion, and that'll be good. And I would say that for anybody. And then face on is good. So I like face on too. I mean, face on is my number one thing. So I want to see down the line, but trust me, face on tells me a lot, probably more about the story than anything.
Well, that's good. I can catch the face-ons if I have a dead dome that day. I can get that. So thank you, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to wrap it up unless there's any more questions. So hey, I hope everybody again has a great Thanksgiving, and I know the holiday season's coming up. We're going to try to rock it through December here, and just send swings in. Whatever you got, it makes it easier on me. It makes it easier on everybody. The more swings you send in, and even if it's putting, chipping, pitching, bunkers, I don't care. Send whatever you want, and it makes the webinars longer. It makes it better for everybody. There's more value in it, and I just want to make sure everybody's getting what they're paying for, and that the goal of this is get not just full swing better, but everything better. So just remember that it's not always swing that I'm looking for. Send putting, send chipping. It doesn't matter. But regards to that, hope everybody has a great weekend and happy holidays.
You too, Matt. Go Redskins.
Who are they playing?
Dallas.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, well, I'm not a Dallas fan. I'm a New England fan. That'll probably piss everybody off.
Have a good one.
As long as you're not a Cubs fan.
I'm not a Cubs fan today, anyway. Cardinals fan. That worse?
Nah, you got to respect the Cardinals.
I do. All right, you guys take care. Good night.